Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Straight Science. Straight Science is an evening seminar series put on by University of Alaska Fairbanks Northwest Campus in Nome and University of Alaska Fairbanks Alaska Sea Grant, uh, and you're in the home office tonight. So both Alaska Sea Grant and and Northwest Campus, we are public servants of the Bering Strait region. We serve all peoples of the Bering Strait region, which is the homeland and waters of the Inupiaq, St. Lawrence Island Yupik, and Central Yupik peoples. So tonight, again, here's a straight science right on a platter. This is about the deep draft Port of Nome and where we are with that. And I'm actually going to do one thing I don't normally do is in case we get a caller, if people want to text questions also, that's my number's 907-434-1149. And also, I'm just going to drop in the chat because I found this and this port discussion, this deep draft port, here's something from 1960 in the Nome Nugget. So I'm just throwing that in there in the chat, Joy. Joy Baker is no stranger to Nome and no stranger to Straight Science. We were here 2 years ago, pretty much close to the same time of year, and hearing all about the port. And just to give a quick little update on Joy, she was started working at the port in 1990 and in 1997 became the harbor master until she handed it off to our current harbor master in good hands, Lucas Stotts. And then Joy became the port project manager. And I think your claim to fame now, Joy, is you have worked under, is it now 14 city managers?
The last guy we just hired, yes, he's number
He's
14.
number 14. So I'm trying to keep tally on all this. So we've got Joy. Joy took a little time off and came right back. She is now the port project manager and currently acting director at the city of Nome. And this is not a new topic, as you can see in the chat. And we are all between this port and the country, we have taken lots of twists and turns since 2023. And so we are eager and ready for an update on the Port of Nome. And there is one request to hold your questions to the end. So we're going to let Joy, with that, Joy, take it away. Tell us what's coming next. And we're so glad you are with us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for joining. I will jump right into it. And as Gay said, I'm hoping to get through the presentation. A lot of you have seen it before. Some of you have not. Some of the information is new. So I prefer to answer your questions at the end so we don't get the cart before the horse. A lot of times people ask questions about the last few slides that gives the latest, and we never get there. So, as most of you know, Nome was selected out of 13 sites by the Army Corps of Engineers, the state of Alaska, back in 2015 as one of 13 sites, selected as the site out of 13 sites for expanding existing infrastructure and developing what would be intended to serve as the deep draft Arctic port in the U.S. Arctic in order to supply provide resupply and refueling to the vessels that are servicing the Arctic, transiting the Arctic, and working in the region. So I'll jump right into it to the next slide here. Uh, Although this is just a rendering of what the expansion is intended to look like, I wanted to throw it out there right away so that folks have a general perception of what the finished and completed project is intended to look like. And I also close with this slide so it gives folks the ships are a little bit different, but the layout is the same. It gives folks an understanding and a repeat on what the finished project is going to look like early 2032, 33 area in the next decade. So We're looking here at the commodity distribution region for what, although everyone knows that Norton Sound is 19 hubs, 19 villages that are supported out of the Nome region and the Nome distribution port. We also service Barrow. We have serviced Barrow to Platinum as far as transshipping cargo goods and fuel and gravel. So we like to show this map which is on the back of our port folders, just to give a real good graphic of what it is that our port does serve across the region. As we're the only coastal port north of Dutch Harbor. Um, in it in with the in the addition to the community resupply and transshipment, we also provide sort of a staging ground for the environmental oil spill response, resource development, search and rescue, industrial support, and of course, tourism, which is one of our largest growing demographics at the port for statistics. This shows you, boy, excuse me, folks, I got to open the door. I'm getting awful hot for some reason, and the heater's not even going. Okay, thanks for that. I don't want to pass out here on the screen. Um, so this gives you some visuals of what our port looks like when transshipping fuel, cargo, and gravel and rock. For those that haven't seen the facility in action, this is we have three 200-foot docks now presently, and this shows you them all these different uh, fleet types utilizing the facility using the same square footage, and therefore we have to alternate these types of industries in order to make the best use of the space available. And when we're set up for armor stone and gravel, as you can see, or cargo, there isn't much room for anything else. Next slide. This gives you another different dynamic of what the ship traffic looks like that also uses the same footprint, which is one of the driving forces for expanding the port, as we are just too congested in trying to conduct all of our ice-free operations in the short summer window, all in within the same 600 foot of docks, 900 foot of dock space. Excuse me. Um, we've got cruise ships here, which is growing exponentially each year. And then at the bottom left, we're talking NOAA ships, and at the top right, you've got a Coast Guard ship at the dock with one of the cruise ships coming in to tie up at the outer cell. We've expanded the opportunity for the cruise ships to actually come in dockside versus anchoring offshore and lightering by allowing them to span across the length of more than one dock in order to accommodate the length when, of course, our minus 22-foot draft enables them to come in, but their length is the problem. So we actually push off our commercial cargo vessels in order to accommodate the cruise ships, as they need to take up more space than what one normally would by utilizing just one of the 200-foot docks. This gives you a dynamic of what the traffic, excuse me, the traffic looked like in 24. Um, This color graphic here tells you of all the different vessel types that you see on the bottom right that transited through Nome. Um, some of these, like the bottom and the red one, the dredging, these are home ported vessels. So you'll see quite a bit of pattern close to shore where those guys are working. The rest are some of the others are the, the passenger, as well as the tankers and the tug and towing, which is the barge industry, and then research in the military vessels. Um, it gets to be quite busy, and the majority of these vessels are oversized for the small boat harbor, so they're the ones that are always shuffling back and forth to take their turn at the dock at the causeway, making that prime dock space during the ice-free season um, a critical element in juggling all of the traffic in order to try and get everyone their time alongside the dock so that they can conduct their business, discharge cargo, fuel, load rock, gravel, resupply the ships, refuel. It's um, it's a busy place, and I definitely want to give kudos to the Marine Exchange of Alaska for providing this detail and data shots every year. Those guys are um, they're definitely worth their weight in gold. They're a wonderful organization. We've been part of them since the early '90s. This will shift over to the project itself. This right here is the actual overview of the Port of Nome modifications project layout that the Army Corps and the City of Nome have been working to design. This is what is considered Alternative 8B, which was agreed upon as the most reasonable, practical, and most effective design that was investigated through the feasibility phase. Um, we've been there. We've been in partnership with the Army Corps since 1919, and it took them 100 years. We finally completed the modification study for um, taking this facility out to deeper water. But we've got a great partnership with the Army Corps, and even though there's been a number of large hurdles that we've had to clear, um, we're finally back in the game with Phase 1A that was put out to bid on February 28th. Bids are due April 28th, as you'll see towards the bottom. Contract reward is anticipated in August, and the construction is expected 26 to 29. I'll get into that in a lot more detail as we move through the project. But as you'll see, this right here, the what you see is in place on the causeway. This is what is existing. This west extension into an L is what phase one was uh, to construct. Phase two is dredging, and phase three was to relocate this breakwater east and put docks on it. So things have changed a little bit, but overall, the intent and initial design of the project remains the same. In putting together the feasibility and design and the justification for the project so that the Corps could get their buy-off from Congress, the project purpose and objectives functioned around a number of elements, not only, not just specific to um, addressing the congestion and reducing the number of lightering trips that have to take place for vessels that are well beyond our minus 22-foot draft in the existing outer harbor, but it expands the ability to transship things through the region at what we hope is a lower cost. It all relates to how industry translates that into their operating costs, but we are hopeful that um, down the road that's where that cost saving is realized in transshipping throughout the region. In addition to the overcrowding and the congestion, we're looking at being able to increase our capacity to resupply the national security vessels, the research and other tourism, the large vessels that are still required to anchor offshore before and having to lighter for whatever services they do get. Um, we definitely need to be able to do that dockside, and the expansion of the port will take that to 40 feet. So we'll be able to accommodate everything, even up to the polar security cutter. But with the exception of the aircraft carrier and a submarine, we have yet to see a commercial vessel, an industry vessel that we can't accommodate once the project is completed. Um, This will also increase navigation safety, maneuverability, and allow more vessels to operate simultaneously so that there aren't folks having to anchor offshore to wait their turn. We went from a three-phased project to a four-phase. So what you're seeing on the left-hand side is phase 1A. This is what is currently out to bid. That is with bids due the end of this month. This is a 1,200-foot causeway extension with an additional 600-foot dock, similar to the docks we currently have, the open sail sheet pile. This will get out to an approximate 30-foot depth, 32. There will be some minimal dredging in front of that dock as long as we've got no protection that the rest of phase one will provide. They're not going to dredge the entire footprint in front of this dock down to 40 feet, as it's not conducive to longevity. The sediment transport is just going to keep filling it in. So we'll be able to accommodate vessels deeper than the -22 we currently have, but we will continue progressing towards building out the rest of phase one so that we can dredge the deep water basin, which is what we call this in phase 1B, in order to accommodate the deeper draft vessels. Now, as I said, we anticipate this phase 1A, once it's awarded, to begin in the May of 26. It's all going to depend on how much rock the contractor chooses to make, what may already be available by that time before they actually start their in-water construction, but we do expect them to be in the water in 26. Phase 2 will follow after that, just because this portion of the work, the dredge work, is already in design. It's going to be going through the final stages this summer to get authorized through division and headquarters before it'll go out to bid in May of 26, about a year from now. This work will be scheduled to start in 27 while phase 1A is still being constructed, and they'll be able to dig the existing outer harbor during this time and then migrate out to digging the deep water basin portion as we move closer to getting phase 1B out to bid. Everything's going to overlap in order to keep the project moving forward and having contractors on site, which will hopefully reduce MOB and DMOB costs as the next portion of the project goes out to bid before the previous contractor has finished his work. Then this will move into phase 3, which is now projected. This one is not designed yet. That will come in 27. That will start in 27, but they're just projecting that for fiscal year 30 at this time, and those dates will tighten up as we move closer. And here's just a closer up, better view of what phase 1A will build. They will still remove the spur, which is what this little tip off the West Causeway is called. It actually keeps down the swell and the waves from wrapping around and causing difficulty in operating at the existing outer. By remove, we take away that little bit of protection, but it's necessary to do so in order to construct the extensions, 1,200-foot extension, which will then in its own right provide that previous protection that is removed. And then the 600-foot dock will be attached to that. Shifting out to the Bering Strait to reflect the increase in traffic out there as well. A great deal of which, as you can see in the graphic to the right, also transits through Nome. Um, some don't. Some don't every trip. Some do every other trip. It just depends on what's required and whether they are going over the top, whether they're just fishing, whether they're going straight up to just deliver cargo up at the in the Northwest Arctic Borough and North Slope Borough. Sometimes they come through Nome, sometimes they don't. Whether they're delivering fuel or just going over the top. We have a lot of pleasure craft that like to do that. Generally, we see those vessels, not always. And again, this information is courtesy of the Marine Exchange. But if you'll notice in the table, we went from 242 transits in 2010. 2014, we're at 665, and it shows no hint of slowing down. So the Corps and the legislature and Congress, they all see that and understand that. And in addition to the national security needs, as well as the oil spill response and life safety, ice. What do we think? What am I trying to say? The life safety vessels for the Coast Guard that need to have a place to refuel and resupply in order to protect life for these vessels. Uh, with the anticipation of you increase the traffic, you're ultimately going to have increased risk of vessel incidents and accidents. So that's why the focus continues to increase on providing the expanded facility at Nome to support this increased maritime traffic. Oh, here are some of the when the Corps was doing the feasibility study, as well as in when they were presenting the project to their um, leadership. These are the targeted benefits of the facility. As I've mentioned, national security and life safety, environmental safety, economic and cultural sustainability. Clearly, another driving element that is as important as any of the other. Tourism and recreation, and then the research and resource development. All of these elements are will be impacted and enhanced by the expansion of the Port of Nome. Um, these these are frequently stand out just for the protection of the country as well as protecting life in order to respond more quickly to incidents with vessels across the northern Arctic region when we've got folks that are in trouble. Um, We are also we have planned a port waste reception facility in Nome, which is the IMO, International Maritime Organization, changed their regulations requiring port facilities to provide waste reception to allow for the more remote areas of the world to provide a regional facility for accepting the waste when it's impractical for each of the ports in that remote region to do so themselves. We are working to develop that regional facility here in Nome. We are speaking with a couple of different funding agencies about developing the incinerator um, phase of the project before we move into accepting black water and gray water, the sewage. Um, So this is a long, involved process, and we're starting this now so that once the project is complete, the expansion is complete, that we'll be able to introduce and tie in this regional reception facility at the same time to keep these materials out of the ocean, which is the ultimate goal. Mining and resource development. Clearly, everyone knows about the graphite deposit and the variety of gold prospects that are in the region. Um, Obviously, Cape Nome for mining the rock, but we're also, you know, I'm told, I don't propose to know, but I'm told that there are many prospects across the Seward Peninsula that at the right price for the ore could be developed and um, have potential for future export. So of course that would drive jobs in the economy in the region, and we're all for that. And here's this is a different, like I said, different ships at the expanded facility, but this is kind of what she's intended to look like, what we currently have her designed to look like. It's just this first phase is being broken up to be constructed in 2 sections versus 1, but the overall layout of the facility is intended to be the same. So that's, I mean, we've got other projects going on. Be happy to talk about those, but I think I'll stop here at the end of the presentation and see if folks have questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Joy. That gave us an
You bet.
overview. I'm curious about what other projects you're talking about, but the port was the main one tonight. So with that, while everyone's thinking of their questions, this is the time for Straight Science. Throw a little love in the chat box for the speaker. It's never easy to be a public speaker, and we thank Joy for taking time out of her. It's after hours, so we thank her for taking extra time, to bring the news from the city of Nome to the rest of us about what's going on. Feel free to type in your questions. Again, you can text 43907 434 1149, or you can raise your hand or let us know that you're ready for questions. And I see the chat. Let me check right here for you, Joy. You're getting some kudos.
And yes,
Always
we'll
nice.
share a PDF of the
Is it possible to
presentation.
receive the
Yeah.
PDF slideshow? Is this something that you could find maybe on the City of Nome
Uh,
website?
Not this one. I mean, there are a variety of other older ones, but this one I just put together today. So this one's not on the website,
Okay, and then
but we can
for,
share.
okay, that's awesome. And then for people wonder, where does the recording end up? I'm gonna put the link for the, um, where we archive the Straight Science Talks, and including this one. So that'll be available in this, I'll put Straight Science YouTube. Oops, YouTube. All right. All right, we've got Charlie with his hand up. Go ahead, Charlie. Glad you're here.
Oh, thanks. No, I like you. I'm got too many things to remember. So with the change from 1A and 1B instead of just one, is that dock uh, on the north-south leg of the port going to be broken in half? Is it going to be two different 600-foot docks, or is it going to be one longer one?
It's going to be, hi Charlie. It's going to still result in being the 2,000-foot dock that you see here in the rendering.
Okay.
So
Is it possible? Oh,
they,
sorry,
they will
Joy.
back up and overlap and continue on.
Sorry, Joy. Is it possible to go back to that where you have the different phases if we're talking about those? Because that might be helpful for my brain. That was a great slide. Oh, yep, right there. Thank you so much. Does that help, Charlie?
Yeah. Yeah. I was confused because it looks like a portion will get built with 1A and then I guess it'll be completed in 1B. So that was,
Yeah, Charlie, if you look here, let's see, how did that happen? Let's see, that
Just
doesn't look like the right one.
you want to hit your Zoom blue button on their menu, probably.
There we go.
There you go. And you want to
So,
hit share. It'll
oh,
make
it's
it
not
bigger.
sharing? Yeah, it
No.
says I'm
I mean,
sharing.
it's sharing, but it's not in presentation mode, so it's much smaller to look at than what you had.
Oh, okay, okay. Um, so if you right here, just for a kind of just a rough line out. This here by where the Healy is, that's the 600-foot portion it's going to be built. And then when they come back in, they have to remove a portion of the breakwater nose and start building the breakwater back out to finish 1B, and they will grab the dock face and keep moving south. So it will ultimately look like this, Charlie.
Okay. Okay.
But they're just going to have to build it out to a point where they've got an end wall on the dock and a nose on the breakwater, and then they'll have to do some disassembly so they can continue forward.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, that was the
You bet.
question.
Quick question too, and I see you, Nick, you're next, Nicholas. Quick question, while you're building that out, is the fuel header gonna stay at the, where it currently is, or with that phase 1A? Does that actually get moved, or will it end up, where does it ultimately end up?
In phase 1A, there is no change to the fuel header. That
Okay,
comes in phase 1B.
okay. Thank you. That's for, that's where the boats can go gas up and things like that. Thank you.
Well, yeah,
Fuel up. All right, Nicholas, thanks for your patience. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation, Joy, and thank you, Gay. I have several questions, but I'm just going to start with one, which is I'm curious, like, do you anticipate the construction process to kind of incapacitate the port in significant ways? Will you all be able to handle the same amount of traffic during the construction phase? And are there anticipated, like in the calculations, was like loss of revenue and loss of kind of vessels docking in the port accounted for in the in the budget?
We've thanks, Nicholas. We've extensively discussed this with the Army Corps and during the pre-proposal conferences with the proposed bidding contractors, and the port will function during construction. We absolutely have to with our limited season and the transshipment of goods and fuel throughout the region. We do not project any loss of revenue. We are going to be working closely with the contractor during construction. There will be times when our dock work will swell a bit and their access will narrow and vice versa. So we're all on the same page, the contractor, the Corps, and the city on how this will happen. And the contractor will have maximum access to the greatest extent possible during construction, with the vessels needing a little give on that when they are in maximum load or unload mode. And yeah, we've actually had construction when we were, we built one of the middle dock while we were operating the other two. And it can get hairy at times, but we intend to we'll be making it work.
Sounds like very elaborate choreography. Thank
That's
you
it
for
right
your
there.
answer.
You bet.
I think Joy has described it as Tetris.
That's it.
All
It's a
those, like
Tetris game.
All right, Anna Rose, and then Anna Rose, go for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gay, and thank you, Joy. I've heard concern from some people wondering that are certain vessels, are they actually going to stop in Nome to do resupply, to do refueling, because they can carry on board really what they need for long stretches of time. So I'm curious, has the port already been seeing an increase in those services? And what it would be expected to see going forward? Thanks.
You bet. Thanks, Hannah Rose. I guess I'm not really sure what fleet type vessels you're mentioning. We've seen an increase in that type of services for vessels that can actually access the dock. It's difficult to see that increase when they can't access the dock because they're too deep. We have been advised by a number of the deep draft vessels that will be accommodated in the expansion that they would prefer to refuel in Nome instead of going all the way to Dutch. And that their intent would be to utilize Nome, and that includes the National Security Fleet. So we do anticipate that refueling and resupply to increase with those deeper draft vessels once they can access dockside. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And I'll have another question, but maybe we can cycle through Dean and Nicholas and someone else.
You bet. All right, with that, Dean and then Nicholas. Thanks, Anna.
Hi, Joy. Thank you for the seminar. I really appreciated it. I'm really a proponent of a new harbor up in Nome. My question is, most of the sediment that flows down the coast is from the east coming into your harbor. And the design that you have will collect that sediment, which will call for increased cleaning of the harbor. I was just wondering why the design is in an L shape to the east instead of an L shape to the west. And I don't mean to be nasty about this, but it just makes more sense to me that you would want to reduce the amount of dredging that you would have to do. So if you can answer that, I'd really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Dean. I'm happy to answer it to the extent that I can. I'm not a hydraulics person. I've worked extensively with the hydraulics folks, the engineers at the Corps, as well as our own design engineers and dredging engineers. I can tell you that over the years that I've been here, we have seen a significant amount of sediment transport from the west as it comes and builds up on the backside at the end of the causeway there towards on the outside where the spur and the most southerly dock, the city dock is, and as well as transiting through the breach there on the Causeway Bridge and falling into the sump area. And once the minus 22-foot sump that collects that sediment is full, it gets pushed over and falls into the existing channel into the harbor, which small boat harbor, which is why the Corps dredges this port every year. So I do know that there is sediment from the east, but we have a significant amount from the west, which has posed problems over the years. And you'll not only the west extension here, this big L we're looking at, is not only in about sediment transport, it's primarily about wind and wave action and allowing us to have fewer lost weather days than we have had since the facility was built. So it's a combination effect, and you'll see that the reversed L shape on the east side, the rebuilt East Causeway, has the intent in mind of the easterly storms and waves, as well as any sediment moving from that end. But as you can see, they both have a breach required by the Fish and Game, and the Corps handles that with these permitting agencies. So the sediment transport comes through on both sides for the breaches. I don't anticipate, and I'm not a hydraulics person, but based on the way I've seen the sediment behave around this facility for the last 28 years, I do not anticipate the sediment to build up in front of the dock faces of the expanded deepwater basin.
Thank you much. Much appreciated.
You bet.
Move forward, get this port done. Really appreciate
Yes.
it.
Thank you. That's what we're trying to do.
All right. And as a follow-up to that, Joy, and Anna, one sec, is one of my things on phase, it's interesting. So it goes phase 1, we're going to add 1,200 feet. Phase 2, we're going to dredge. Are we worried, or are we worried that we get another big storm out of the southwest and that rewrites the bathymetry there, the bottom of the, or are we gonna get help from Army Corps to dredge that out if that happens? I was just thinking, what do we do if we get a Merbach and we just have that jetty going straight out and it's dredged, the phase 2 is dredging? Is there, they're
Well,
not
I'm
worried
trying
about
to,
that? They're not worried?
well, I'm trying to answer, I'm trying to figure out which one to answer first.
Okay. It's one question. Are
Right.
you worried about that phase 2 coming to
No.
dredge it out? No?
No,
No.
because the southerly extension is got it down to the, let me go back to that. The southern limits of the dredging right
There we
here.
go. Yeah.
Once we get down into here, you're already at the minus 40-foot contour. So the
Okay.
extent of that dredging is not going to be significant. They're going to be dredging up here in front of the 1,200-foot, 600-foot dock phase 1A component.
Yep.
If we get a Merbach, it's, I mean, the southern extent of it is probably going to see some sediment infill, but it's not going to do anything, overwhelming to the existing facility because
Okay.
it didn't do that from the last Merbach and there wasn't anything there.
Right.
So, yeah, and the Army Corps is, let me think of a better term because the one I was going to use is too much slang. I have a bad habit of that. The Army Corps is still required to complete the dredging for the navigational access for this port as they have from 1919 up to and through and beyond the completion of this project. So they're required to do all of the dredging to keep the facility open and operating.
Okay.
But the design and the construction methodology and the phases that you're looking at will do. I do not believe, and I've not been told anything that implies that we're going to be set significantly backward by this process in the event a storm comes.
Okay. No, thanks for answering
the
that.
storms come every year. So
Yeah.
they're
It just
prepared
didn't
for
look like
those.
the right order to my brain, but
Well,
I'll
of course
leave it with
not, but
yeah, well, my brain
it's
doesn't work
called
like
it's
everyone
called
else's.
money. It's called
Oh, it's
money.
the money. Okay. And we do have a comment in the chat. I'll just read out. Born in Austin and Mossack, born and raised in Nome, am not a proponent of the port expansion. The Port of Nome blocks 120,000 cubic yards of sand annually and exceeds the 2010-2024 U.S. Army Corps of Engineers average annual beach nourishment of 49,258 cubic yards from dredging. This discrepancy does not replace beach nourishment that is lost from the port. Blocking nourishment sand is mined from the east and west. Fact, the Port of Nome starves the beach areas east and west with devastating effect. So we'll all see what happens as we move forward in this. So thank you for that comment in the chat. Thank you, Dean, for your thoughts on that. And thank you, Joy, for your answer. All of that greatly appreciated.
Absolutely.
With that, Anna Rose.
Oh, please let Rick go. I've already asked a question. He hasn't.
Okay, Rick Toman.
Yeah, thanks very much, Joy. Really helpful to get this latest update. I was wondering if you could summarize from the studies done with the lengthening here of potential impacts to sea ice movement that the expansion might cause. Thanks.
Hello, Rick. Thank you. Thanks for the question. Well, I'm trying to back up and think about what it is that we've discussed as far as sea ice movement. Obviously, with the extension pushing out another 3,500 feet out into the Norton Sound, it would definitely that armor structure is going to impact movement of east and west. Um, obviously, that would, I mean, just thinking about it logically, it would be to a much greater degree than the shallower area of the causeway that also impacted ice movement once it was built in 1985. I don't know. I don't have a I'll be honest with you, Rick. This isn't my forte, but I do think that ultimately, you know, when the two forces meet, the ice and the armor stone structure, that, you know, something's got to give. Perhaps we get more icy boost from the southwest coming over the backside. I don't know. You know, I do recall there being more discussion about this between the engineers. Perhaps Charlie Lean has some recollection from those older meetings that he might want to throw in here. Charlie's memory is better than mine.
If it helps too, Joy, I just put the Nome sea ice radar, which is live. So if anyone's interested in how the ice is moving right now, you can actually see it live. That's a University of Alaska Fairbanks project with City of Nome, NJUS, it looks like, and others. So I think, Rick, you bring up a really good point, and all I can do is direct people to see the Nome sea ice radar. So if that helps Joy in moving forward with some of the engineer discussions, I think that's a really great,
Yeah,
useful to see
it's
how
a
it's moving.
it's a great question, Rick, and one that I will take to my team on Monday afternoon when we have our weekly call. It's a good one, and one that I'd like to obtain a suitable answer for.
And Joy, I'd throw in also breakup of ice in this with the, you know, with the L shape, with how they figure that's going to get flushed out. I have no more idea than a rabbit, honestly, but just something I've thought about myself.
This is Charlie, if I could jump in.
Yep.
So I think this year's ice out event was instructive to Rick's question. So we had the ice blowout directly in front of Nome, took the Nome National Forest and all. And then, but to the west of the port facility, the ice held. And so I think the port helped keep the ice from peeling off the beach to the west. And I'd also like to say that a lot of ice, some of the last ice to leave Norton Sound, shorefast ice, is wedged in the angle between the beach and the causeways on either side. And in some years there's sea mammals that are utilizing that last bit of ice on the beach. So it varies from year to year, but having a promontory point, like any natural peninsula, will tend to hold ice a little bit longer, and the ends will get scoured. So I think that's the answer.
All right. Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks, Joy. Thanks, Charlie.
Are you good, Rick?
Yeah, thanks very much.
All righty. Anna, back to you, and we'll start going down the list. Sue Speckman has just joined in too. So maybe when you're done, Anna, we'll let her cut in line for Nicholas and Dean, and we'll get to everybody. Okay, Anna, thanks for being patient.
Thank you. The city increased its fees on passengers vessel per passenger, which led to a significant increase in the revenue that the city gathered from passengers. And I'm curious, is that able to help cover the cost share on the city, or is that having to be dedicated specifically to onshore tourism facilities?
All right. Well, interestingly enough, we've lost Joy, are
How's
you
that?
still on?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, I didn't know
Um,
what was going on there. Couldn't find you.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Anna Rose. I will tell you that the the small increase that was put into play for the passenger and facility fees, the local version of those fees, not to be confused with the state version of those fees, um, has not come to any level of a quantity suitable to be used for the cost share for the port expansion. Those fees would need to stack up for a number of years before we would be able to do that. However, it is the intention of what we've discussed with the Port Commission in using those fees for improvements on shore and at the dock for the tourism related activities and vessels. Similar to the state fees, those paid to the first 7 ports that any particular vessel docks, those are also required to be used for cruise ship related expenses and costs. So um, I think that we will continue to use those to make improvements to both the harbor location where the deeper vessels lighter in, as well as the causeway where these vessels tie up. But it'll be a while before it will be quite some time before the dollars equate anything that would be beneficial for the port expansion cost share.
All right. Hope that answered your question, Anna. And we're gonna jump, Nick. Thank you for being patient. We're gonna jump to Suzanne Speckman. She has not had a question up yet, so all right. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Suze.
Hi, everybody, and thank you, Kay, and thank you, Joy, for holding this. It's been super informational. So, Joy, I'm just curious, what is the port view as the biggest potential environmental concerns facing the project, particularly during construction? Is it marine mammals or fish or seabirds or oil spill and other, contamination risks, or availability of, fish or marine mammals for subsistence? What keeps you up at night from an environmental perspective? What are you worried about?
Well, thanks, Suzanne. I appreciate the question. I think in all operations, not just in the construction project, but our biggest fear is always oil spills, and things that are tied to vessels and equipment failures that are generally out of our control, and we do everything we can to respond immediately to those. So I'd have to say that similar to regular operations, uh, that would be the same biggest fear we'd have during construction is something similar, um, as well as ensuring that the marine mammals are not affected by the driving of the sheet pile and the fender pile, the things that the contractor in the city and the Corps, who handled the majority of the permitting requirements for the project, are beholden to during construction. So we are, hopeful that the the spills are kept to a minimum and hopefully, even less than that, um, as well as any impact that construction may have to the marine mammals, which can be which the nymphs folks rightfully are able to mitigate and control through the requirements they place on the Corps and the city and the contractor. So yeah, I'd have to say that those are the 2 primary ones.
And
Great, thank you.
You bet.
and that's a good question, Suze, and a good answer. And just I think it's also good to mention that because people have spoken up about concerns, I think for environmental issues with the port, I think some things have come into effect, though I'm not 100% sure, but Joy, they're gonna use like bubble netting around the pile driving, things like, blowing bubbles to sort of mitigate sound travel, those kind of things.
There's a number of mitigation factors that have been put into place for this work, and I believe they're all described in the permit that is actually on the city's website
Yeah, and I think
for the project.
okay, and I think that people voiced up some concern, and I recommend if people do have concerns, they're being listened to in that regard. I've seen that came out of somebody saying something, so I think everyone appreciates that they're gonna start, if you say something, people are listening, and so it's better to speak up than not, because it does make a difference, and there are things that are gonna happen that are there to mitigate problems. So just letting people know it's okay to speak up. With
Absolutely.
that, yep, I appreciate that, Joy. With that, Nicholas Parlato, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks all. These have been some really good questions, and actually Suzanne sort of took some of what one of my questions was going to be, so I'll leave that sit. But one of the things that is also occurring to me, most of the traffic that is increasing in the Bering Strait is on the Russian side, and there's certainly efforts and actions that can be taken now to improve Nome's oil spill response capacity. And so I was wondering if, like, to wait 4 years for the construction to be completed to kind of anticipate that there'll be a better Coast Guard presence and better, assets there to deal with an oil spill response over the next 4 years. I was wondering if the port is doing anything, if you, Joy, are kind of supporting any efforts that would improve Nome and the broader region's ability to, like have community members and people in the local search and rescue, have the training to, and the training and the equipment to do oil spill, like through like the Shadow Network or some other organization. Thanks.
Thanks, Nicholas. Those implements are already in place. We do have several vessels of opportunity and training things that occur every year with the locals that are involved with Shadow. The Shadow comes up and does training each year. We have our oil spill tank farms and other, the fire department and other responders participate in first responder hazmat training. And all of those things are in place based on our existing fuel capacity and our existing port operation. And Shadow and the state ADC hosts a couple of containers here with gear that is always accessible when needed. Each of the tank farm has a large inventory of spill supplies that they make available when there's an issue and when there's an incident. And like I said, extensive training goes on each year. So I guess the only thing that's missing is for the Coast Guard to actually have an on-site facility where they can base out of. But that we know that they are fully supplied on their vessels as well that transit the Bering Strait region in the summer. So yes, things are in place. We're only hoping to expand and enhance that. We certainly aren't waiting for the project to be complete before we put these things in place.
All right,
Thank
Nicholas
you.
gives you the
Yeah.
thumbs up. Thank you. And he also writes in the chat, that's all good to hear. Last I read, the equipment inventoried by Shadow seemed limited, but maybe that's changed. Any thoughts on that, Joy, or you don't
Well,
know?
it would have to depend on what was inventoried and the timeline, and as to whether Shadow has an increased inventory since then.
Okay.
Too many unknowns in right there to weigh in.
Right. And know, Nicholas, that this region, just like Joy mentioned, oil spills are sort of the big terrifying one, because we don't have any control over what kind of ships or what quality of ships are going through the strait. And we have dealt with oiled wildlife in this region. We have had oil-fouled marine wildlife, both seabirds and marine mammals, from an unsourced spill, though we had a vessel go down in the Gulf of Anadir at the same time. And that was in 2012. So this region has had oiled wildlife. We know what can happen, and we're not wanting to see any more of it, if that helps. Dean, go ahead, then Charlie.
Yeah, Joy, I'm sorry. I tend to fixate on things, and dredging kind of is one of the issues at the moment. And I would ask you, not for an answer, but just to consider the differential in costs between dredging the port now and in the future with your new design, and get that information to the city of Nome so they're aware of that. And that's all I really wanted to say. I really appreciate your patience with me, so thank you.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Dean.
Thanks, Dean. Go ahead, Charlie. Floor is yours.
I'm having a hard time getting muted and unmuted. This is Charlie. Yeah, so there is actually a Coast Guard Chateau City of Nome drill scheduled for this spring, shortly after ice out. It's partly tabletop and partly exercising oil spill booms and so forth for the Port of Nome. And you know, part of this drill is supposed to be a surprise, so I'm not supposed to talk about it much, but that's scheduled. And I wanted to say that oil spills in the deep sea are very difficult to contain, and and often the booms and things don't work unless it's almost flat calm. So, but you know, the cleanup at the beach or when the weather lets down is when most of that cleanup has to occur. So avoiding spills is a big deal, and responding to oil spills as they enter estuaries or, you know, the mouths of rivers is something that oil booms and things can work at. So that is exercised on an annual basis. The Coast Guard has a presence, and more so, they're trying to have a larger presence. So I wanted to say that there's work being done, but truthfully, oil spills at sea are a huge disaster. So thanks.
All right, thank you for that point, Charlie. And to your also to your point, Jared Stone with the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation wrote, U.S. Coast Guard is having a large-scale oil spill exercise this June in conjunction with SHADO, that's our oil spill responding organization, the state of Alaska, and local stakeholders. The local tank farms all maintain an inventory of oil spill response equipment. SHADO has a Nome cache and can get equipment to Nome via Anchorage within fairly short notice. I would assume by air in that case.
Correct.
All right. All right. Correct, by air. Thank you, Jared. Good to know I got something right on this. With that, any other questions regarding the modifications for the Port of Nome? Joy, it looked like on your slide with all the things, it looks like we're going to see an award for phase 1A come in August. I think I had that. Did I write that right?
Sometime in August, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So do you anticipate if we have open water and a warm fall, do you anticipate, will we see any action in the water, or will we see people starting to build man camps or things like that?
The workforce camp is anyone's guess. It depends on one. It takes the Corps usually a month to 6 weeks to sign a contract after an award. It doesn't happen that fast. So once they make a public award, then they've got to start going into the contractual and submittals. And I do not see any activity this season in water or even on site at the port. Now, whether they want to start working on any infrastructure like housing infrastructure. That'd be, that would certainly be up to them. I'd say they'd be pushing the envelope, because mobbing up a barge at the end of the season is pretty touch and go. Until you get a contract in place, you don't want to do that. I think that we'll be seeing activity first part of 26. First part
So
of 26 in spring.
in spring. So any ideas? Will they have to, I guess, chicken and egg, will they have to build a man camp first and then bring people in, or will they, do you any thoughts
I
on,
would
I know there's been
suspect,
a lot of thoughts, but
I would suspect that as soon as weather allows, they're going to start building their workforce camp. They don't call it a man camp anymore.
workforce camp. Okay. Thank
Workforce
you for the
camp,
correction.
because it's not always men that are inside.
Correct.
Um,
Workforce camp. Good to
A
know.
workforce
Thank
camp that my guess is, it's just going to depend on who gets the award and what their resources are, and when they're able to mobilize, and when they're able to start construction based on what our spring is looking like. A lot of unknowns. So it's I mean, you could just throw a dart, and it could take the Corps 8 weeks to award. It could take them 4. So they could extend the award from the middle of August to the middle of September. I mean, we've been witness to how this whole federal procurement and solicitation goes. So there's a lot of room for give and take.
Okay. Maybe I'm not asking
Intended to be award in late 25 the season, the fall of 25, and construction start in 26. It's too soon to get any more precise than that.
Okay, we'll just have to wait and see. I actually, I think I asked my question wrong. I should have asked, how long does it take to make an 80 workforce camp? 80-person workforce camp. So, if we see it in
Depends on how
February,
it's
it'll be done in-
constructed. Depends
Okay.
on how
Sounds like
if it's
we'll
built from
know.
scratch, or if they mobilize it.
Right.
Or if they mobilize it is in
Bring it up.
like IPOP did, in little individual units for 6-8 people. So
Okay.
it just depends on what it is.
We'll wait and see. We'll
That's
wait and
it.
see. That's it. So we'd like you, when it gets more underway, Joy, we hope we can get you back to Strait
Oh,
Science.
sure.
All right.
Sure.
With that, any last questions, comments, calls, or thoughts? Next week, Strait Science is going to be on a Wednesday night. It's going to be on the 16th. It's Ken Tape, who is a researcher from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. He will be giving us some of the results of his work with the inbound migration of beavers into the area, and how those natural little engineers are repurposing or reshaping our tundra, the whole ecosystem. So that one will be on Wednesday night, the 16th. With that, thank you again so much, Joy, for giving us an update. And we'll see everybody. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you next time. Have a good night, everybody.